so seminal in our industry. Data literacy. And to me, when I think about working with an organization and growing their data literacy function, this is seminal. This is core. The concepts I'm going to walk you through today of data literacy levels, data use roles, and personas. So sit back, pay attention, and get ready to roll because we have a lot to cover today. This is just a background slide on EW Solutions. We are currently working with multiple organizations, massive government organizations on data literacy, and talk about a challenge of trying to get not 100 people, but tens of thousands of people data literate. So I'm going to give you the best practices for doing that. This is just a sample of some of the companies we work with, which Anne-Marie. Now, Anne-Marie has hosted so many webinars, probably well over 100 she has hosted, but she has forgotten something vital, Anne-Marie. This month is EW Solutions' 25th anniversary.
David, I didn't forget. I wanted you to mention it.
Of course. And it is unbelievable. I joked around on LinkedIn, for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, that 25 down, 25 more to go. So please, if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, feel free to send me an invite. Be happy to connect with you. And so really one of the things that I believe in giving presentations like this, I want to give you the best practices. What does it take to do this successfully? This is just my background slide. As Anne-Marie mentioned, I've been doing this stuff for quite a while. I've included my email address. If you have questions about your data literacy program, feel free to shoot me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Not always the fastest on emails because I get quite a few a day. But anyway, let's look one slide, data literacy background, because I know not everybody here attended the first two data literacy presentations, webinars that we gave. So let me just quickly go through this. I'm not going to tell you what many other people say. I'm just going to get to the best definition here. Data literacy is about the ability to create, manage, read, work with, and analyze data. Why do we do this? To ensure and maximize the data's accuracy, trust, and most importantly, value to the organization. That's why we do this. So when you're looking to evolve the data literacy within your organization, what's vital for you to do is to figure out and define your data literacy levels, roles, and personas. In this presentation, I'm going to walk you through what each one of these things mean, but I'm also going to show you how we typically tailor them when we work with a client partner. So let me keep going because we have a lot to discuss. My goodness. I have 34 slides I need to get to. I got it. I believe it'll happen. So
you'll be fine, David.
Absolutely. Anne-Marie, you and I have done, this is not our first rodeo, and it probably isn't even our 100th rodeo together. So we will get through it. So really the key thing is when an organization says, hey, we need to become data literate, never forget this first point. You cannot manage what you do not measure. If you're incapable of measuring, taking a baseline of where your data literacy levels are today, and then being able to take another baseline later, then you have no clue whether or not your literacy program is being effective, because you need KPIs for this. And when we look at data literacy levels, roles, and personas, these are the seminal KPIs of your program. They really are. And important learning point, I'm not going to be talk that much about full implementation, but I'll get to some points. Here's the big thing. You need to automate data literacy. If your concept of data literacy is to have somebody bright show up, teach a class for a day, a week, a month, whatever it is, and then walk away, that's not going to do it. That is not going to evolve your literacy program. It needs to be automated. These key KPIs need to be captured and historically tracked by employee. That's how you really know if your program is effective. But anyway, let me keep going. So what are data literacy levels, data use roles, and data literacy personas. Well, I'm so glad you asked. I know it was on your mind because that's why you showed up today. Data literacy levels categorize an individual's data literacy knowledge, capabilities, and skills. And we use 6 basic levels for data literacy, remedial all the way up to expert. I will tell you that the expert level is one that we typically do not measure for with our client partners, because that level is reserved for somebody who is extremely knowledgeable about data, and they have implemented full analytical programs at not one place but multiple places at an enterprise level. Not a whole lot of those people are out there, and it's really something reserved for experts, maybe speakers on the topic who've really been there and done that. Anyway, let us keep going. Data use roles. Anne-Marie alluded to this earlier when she said, hey, we have to figure out how people in our organization interact with data. Because guess what? Not everybody works, breathes, and sleeps with data day and night the way Anne-Marie or myself do. Anne-Marie would be way up high on all these lists because it's what she does all the time. But not everybody does this. So we use the data reuse role to categorize people into how they interact with their organization's data. And then data literacy personas. This is where we are going to categorize an individual's beliefs on data and their belief on how valuable or not valuable data is. So data literacy personas is all about attitudes. It's an attitudinal measurement. And we have 4 different personas that we use: data-driven, data discernment, data indifference, and the dreaded, feared data skeptic. So I've gone through this slide at a high level. If you're thinking, gosh, is he going to talk through all these? Well, of course I am. We have another, let me check my phone here, 46 minutes of webinar yet. Of course I'm going to talk through each one of these and explain it. That's why we came here. So when we look at data literacy levels, we're going to look at briefly expert, but we'll take a little more time on leader, advanced, literate, basic, remedial. Data literacy levels categorize an individual's data literacy knowledge, capabilities, and skills. And they are such a valuable rubric for measuring the data literacy of individuals. So let's take a look at each one of these. Oh, and I should mention, if any of you are familiar with Gartner Group's 5 data literacy levels, we leverage quite a bit from them in this. They did some fantastic work in this area. So when we say somebody is at a remedial level of data literacy, so first, before I explain the remedial level, when you're building a data literacy program for your organization, don't let anybody know there's a level called remedial. And don't ever call anybody. Oh, Anne-Marie, could you imagine? Could you just imagine?
We would insult the poor client people.
Exactly. And too many, and you know this, too many data literacy programs will categorize people as data illiterate. And
Yes.
then they're shocked when they are brought out and back and thrown off a cliff.
Right.
But
Right.
they will be at your castle gate with pitchforks and torches if you call anybody remedial. So we never call anybody this. We have our own, again, how you do this, best practice. We use a numeric system. It is not shared how people scored with them. It's something only if you're, so we many times work with chief data officer offices, which is weird. CDO office maybe sounds a little bit better. So we use these more numerically. So now that I've given you more background, let me get into what remedial is. Somebody who's remedial in data literacy is somebody who knows basic mathematics: add, subtract, multiply, divide, average, etc. If you're thinking, wait a minute, David, I got like Anne-Marie, I bet Anne-Marie got an A in calculus and geometry. Would I be right, Anne-Marie?
Yes, David, you would.
So having worked with Anne-Marie got an A in everything. She's that student. She was the student when you're sitting there saying, we're going to have a nice bell curve. This is going to be easier. She's the one who wrecked the bell curve. So, I was you would have preferred me as a student because I was in a higher sub, but I never wrecked the bell curve. So just saying.
David, did we use the word welcoming level or entrance level instead of remedial?
Yes, entrance level would be great, I think, as a word. And to me, I don't even want to give people classifications that they know. I would rather have that be something we you of course know this, something that we internally manage ourselves so that no one feels insulted. It's kind of like I think back youth sports. If for all our parents out there, if you ever had one of your children playing a youth sport and they go, we're not going to keep score. This is going to be touchy-feely. Every damn kid's keeping score. All of them. They've all figured out, well, we got beat by 4 touchdowns today. We stink. That's going to be the thought. So we don't want to have that happen. Individuals at this level will look at data and they don't really have the capacity to understand it beyond this very superficial level. We sold 1,000 widgets today. Oh, great. We sold 1,000 widgets. That's the end of the analysis. They never stop and think, well, how many widgets were returned today? How many of those were parts of a kit? How many of those were complex, big dollar purchases compared to our little product widget? So these are many of the key questions they won't ask. Is the correct visualization being used? Later on, either this year or early next year, one of our courses will be on the 19 major types of visualizations and graphs you can use. They're not all suitable for every analysis. In fact, most are not. So they won't ask somebody who's remedial will not ask, is this visualization correct? What are the precise definitions for fields? How are fields calculated? How is the data extracted? I mean, that can be really important for an analysis. How is it transformed, and much, much more. So I like the little example here at the bottom. Somebody at the remedial level, if you're a business or data analyst, they're going to view a report or visualization and they're going to accept it as is. They're going to take it like it was carved on Mount Sinai, and they will never question what is actually in it. There will be almost no discernment at this level. This is remedial. Basic. Somebody at the basic level of data literacy understands elemental data literacy concepts, but has a minimum understanding of more in-depth concepts and practices. Somebody at this level has enough knowledge to ask just the most basic questions. Hey, like if you hand them an analysis, what's the business objective of it? They would have a basic understanding, though not a precise understanding, of the definitions of the fields that they're looking at. How are they calculated? And is the calculation correct for the purpose of this report? So they're going to ask these basic questions. And staff at this level do little to go past these basic questions. They don't understand more complex literacy concepts like qualitative versus quantitative analysis, which if I just said some terms you didn't hear, like, wow, I've never heard those terms, or I don't really get quantitative, it seems weird. Go to our last webinar. I walked through these in detail. Anyway, concepts like correlation does not always equal causation is another concept somebody at the basic level is probably unaware of or doesn't really think about. So this is the basic level of data literacy.
David?
Yes.
Would you say that most people in today's marketplace, even customer service reps, et cetera, would need a basic level of data literacy to function in a 21st century economy?
Absolutely, Anne-Marie. You are, and I would maybe argue some of those groups that you mentioned really need to be literate.
Yes, I'm asking that as a paraphrase of a question that was posed.
Absolutely. If you're working with data, especially a customer service rep, and you are making live business decisions with that data, we're going to go left or we're going to go right based on what this report says. I would like you to be literate. You don't have to be as smart as Dr. Smith here, but I certainly need you to be at least literate because you are impacting your business. You are making decisions that change your bottom line.
Thank you.
So, yeah, great question, Anne-Marie. Absolutely outstanding. Whoever asked that, nice job. Literate. The literate level is somebody who does understand data literacy concepts and can create, manage, read, work with, and analyze data. They understand the many traps that an analyst can encounter. So earlier I mentioned, hey, causality or correlation does not always equal causality. What did that even mean? Or some of you are saying, well, what are those words? Causation, correlation. Well, basically meaning that when you're examining or analyzing two variables, like living in Chicago, we get a lot of snow out here, that as the temperature rises, people's use of gas increases in the home, that there is a correlation there, that the more gas you use, that's your variable. Then we want to look, the colder is outside, the more gas you use. Correlation. But correlation does not always equal causality. Give you a good example. And I love this example. I think I've used this on every one of our data literacy webinars. Everybody, here's a statistic for you. Every adult in the United States who died in the past 12 months has eaten a carrot. Therefore, we have perfect correlation between fatalities and carrots. So eating carrots, we can conclude eating carrots cause death. Nope. No. Anne-Marie, totally wrong, right?
Right.
Correlate. Even though we have the correlation, it's not causal. There are other things that come into play, and so we need more variables than that. But it's an obvious way, and that's a simple one. I hope everybody here laughed at that one. Some of you who do not like eating carrots, your idea of a carrot is a Cheeto because it's orange and it's about the same size. If you have little, what do we call it, the cold cuts of carrots, you're like, yes, they do equal fatality. So I'll stick to my Cheetos. But no, it doesn't work for you. I'm sorry. So when we look at somebody who's literate at this level, they really do understand these things, because a data literate business or data analyst, when they get a report or visualization, they are going to question that content until they understand exactly what each one of those fields mean at an atomic level. Atomic means lowest level of granularity, the most detail. They would dig deeper and understand the danger of making or recommending an influential business decision without accurate information. And they would not rely on a poorly designed analysis or use an incorrect one, or an incorrect analysis technique to make those decisions. They would require more than that. And so this is the data literate level.
David, a data literate person would take the questions you posed back when we were talking about the remedial level, and they would know to ask the question, how many widgets did we produce versus how many did we sell today? How many did we sell yesterday? What's the difference in that those two numbers? How many were returned? And what was the value of averaged widget purchases between today and yesterday?
That's right. Exactly. And hey, when we look at widgets purchased, did we include returned widgets?
Uh-huh.
You know, and we're talking about widgets purchased. Do we mean in North America or do we mean worldwide? Do we mean in your division or do you mean in my division? All those and many more. These are just little samples of what the data literate person brings up. All right, advanced. So somebody who's at the advanced level, their literacy is at a point where they can lead an analytics team, at least within a single domain. So if you're a manufacturing company, your domains are engineering, manufacturing, capital equipment. This is somebody who would lead the reporting for one of those units. Individuals at this level are not only data literate, but they ensure that their business domain has sufficient analysis capabilities that can be used to make effective business decisions. They're highly knowledgeable about their domain. So a director for a data analysis team with advanced data literacy skills would ensure that the data quality of their analysis projects meet the thresholds defined by their business. Data quality is seminal in any analytics, because guess what? If you think your data is pristine, you're wrong, because it never is. Global 2000 companies have a plethora of data quality issues just rampant throughout them. So people who are at an advanced knowledge place realize what these challenges are. They understand the bias that can seep into any analysis. In fact, that seeps into all of our data, and they know how to mitigate against it. This is somebody at the advanced level. Let me keep going. I have so much more to talk about. A leader, somebody who's been graded at a leader level. They not only understand data literacy well, but they understand the major business domains within their industry. Somebody like this is typically a chief data and analytics officer, or a vice president of analytics. That's the role. They're not only data literate, but they understand how to ensure their organization has the technology and the analytics that they need to have strong decision support throughout the organization. Highly knowledgeable, and somebody at this level would be maybe the CDO or the VP of analytics, and they would work with the data governance teams and the data quality management, that's what DQM means, programs, to ensure that our analytics efforts meet data quality minimal thresholds, try to say that quickly, from various business domains. So this is an example of somebody at the leader level. Expert. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but this is an individual, and typically we would not measure this at a client partner site because there's just no need to. Stopping at leader is plenty. Sometimes we won't even go to that level. Somebody at the expert level has such an evolved understanding of data literacy and advanced analytics that they can lead and that they have led successfully enterprise analytics across multiple industries. They have a deep understanding of all areas of data management and literacy, and have truly a great track record here. I will tell you, having been in this industry since the 90s, individuals at this level are rare. They are unicorns. Plenty of people tell you they're at that level. How many have really built enterprise analytics across multiple industries successfully at large organizations? Not all that many. All right, learning point. Not everyone in an organization needs to be an expert. And in fact, most organizations won't even have a single expert on their staff. A company should designate a recommended data literacy level for each role classification. This will make more sense when we get into the other two components that we're going to talk about, especially data use roles. Before starting your data literacy training, an organization must evaluate their current literacy levels to establish a baseline. So before you do any training, before your program starts helping people grow, learn, and achieve, you need to first measure where is everybody's knowledge base today. And not only is this an overall measurement, but there's at least 19 different subcategories of data literacy. I'm not saying we always use all 19, but we typically use about 14 of them. You need to understand the data literacy level for each one of those. So super important to do. That's your baseline. That's how you can see if your training is being successful. Let me keep going. All right. This slide is the one you print out, put it up in your office. It just summarizes everything I just said. And it's graphically and visually appealing, is it not? So I got Anne Marie on that one. Anyway, data use roles. That's the next thing we'll talk about. We have 6 common ones. Data minimalists, data users, business and data analysts, the data scientist, the data leader, and the data executive. We have to give credit where credit's due. KPMG did some wonderful work in this area. They talk about their 4 literacy roles. So this leverages some of their concepts, certainly. So when somebody is a data minimalist, so this is really how you assess what they do with their job. Somebody who's a data minimalist has limited interactions with data. Typically, their data interaction is focused to the most basic of reports. Hey, we shipped 1,000 units of product today. We received 1,000 units of product X today. Basic at best. So the janitor within your organization, he or she is a data minimalist. What is the minimum recommended data literacy level? Well, if they work with at least a little bit of reporting, basic is fine. If they can add, subtract, multiply, divide, understand they're reading a report, probably all they need. Next, use role are data users. These are people who work with data on a regular basis. And they use data to make some narrowly focused business decisions. Normally, their decision-making will only affect their specific job function. So it's my job, if it's my job to stack widgets for the conveyor belt to grab and move along, do I have to stack 100 in the next hour, or do I have to stack 50? Very basic, very simple. You don't really need a high level of data literacy for it. All right, business or data analyst. This is somebody who works with and analyzes data throughout the day. They use data to assist their one or more business domains with decision making. Somebody at this level needs to be at least literate in their data literacy knowledge. We then move up to the data scientist. This is someone who works with data, applies sophisticated statistics and analytical formulas. They actually understand about A/B testing. They understand how you remove bias. They have a background with p-value. In fact, maybe your data scientist understands how to calculate p-value from memory. And if they do, wonderful. I do what everybody else does. I use a spreadsheet that has the formula hammered into it, way easier. But anyway, it just is, right? I mean, Anne-Marie, who the heck remembers how to calculate p-value? No.
I don't.
No,
Go to the spreadsheet.
So somebody here who's a data scientist, they need to be data literate. They need to be at least at the data literate level. They have to be. A data leader. So again, somebody who leads one or more data or advanced analytics teams. Somebody here needs to not just understand basic data literacy, they actually do have to understand how data quality impacts what they're doing, the importance of data governance, data ethics, a topic that sadly most companies do not evaluate much anymore. So somebody who's a data leader, their recommended data literacy level is the leader level. And then last is the executive. This is your CDO, your chief analytics officer. For this role, believe it, we put it at literate because they're not in the weeds that much. You're really handling things at a much higher level. And they probably have multiple data leaders underneath them. So for a data executive, leader is fine as a minimum literacy level that they need.
David, so, would you say that a data scientist should be more at the advanced level to be a true data scientist?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement that you said. So we put here the minimal.
Yes, it's the minimum. I'm paraphrasing another question.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And you might within your organization say, hey, we want them to be advanced. What we've seen anyway, at least in the organizations that we've worked with up to this point, is sometimes the data scientists, they understand some complex, yes. Where I'm going, Anne-Marie.
Yes.
They understand some complex stuff, but they tend to be a little bit myopic on occasion. They don't understand the larger picture. Like, oh, let me grab a data set. I see data in here. Awesome, I can use it. Whoa, you better evaluate that data set first. You better understand, is this really the golden record for this data in your organization, or is it something else?
And if it's not, how do you fix it so that it can be golden, or how do you support what you want to do with better data?
Exactly.
And a lot of data scientists don't think of that.
Exactly. Too often they don't. And that's something that we really want to keep in mind as we bring this up. That field is an evolving field. Yes. Right. I mean, at one time we called it statistics. I'm sure you remember those days. And it's certainly evolved quite a bit from there. Eventually, I don't know if we'll get to it this year, but at least next year, We'll do a webinar. It'll probably have to be a two-parter on storytelling with data.
Yes, it is next year.
It is okay. That's what I thought, because it's an advanced concept where you get into different things. So, for example, storytelling with data. We're using a little bit of it here. This visualization, the colors are calming. Don't they soothe you like a hot cup of chamomile tea? This is yet another, which I know Anne-Marie enjoyed.
Yes.
This is another great slide to print, put up in your office, because it summarizes what we just walked through. Last but not least, data literacy personas. Remember the definition for a persona? We are categorizing an individual's beliefs and attitudes on data and its value to the organization. Personas do not, when we're measuring a persona, it has nothing to do with knowledge. It's all about the attitude. You can have somebody, sadly, who's a data leader, and we've met these people, who are skeptics. They don't believe data really provides that much value, but it's a good paying job. So it's really cultural, because if you ignore the cultural side, you're really not doing data literacy well. So let's get into these 4 data literacy personas: the data skeptic, data indifference, data discernment, and data driven. Let's look at them all. Okay. When somebody's a data skeptic, they question the validity of using data to drive decision making, or even use it for their job function. They doubt the value of data driven decision making. They believe gut instinct and experience should always override data. And I'm not even going to give the learning let me give you a real world example. We were working with a manufacturing company who made just fantastic products, women's apparel products, beautiful stuff. And the chief marketing officer looked me in the eye and said, I don't use data to make decisions on what we're going to be doing next year. I kind of look at Twitter and see what Kim Kardashian says. That literal quote from this person.
Yes. And that person was not alone in that company. Their operations people relied on Instagram.
Exactly. Which, not a shock though, if you look at their last 7 years, revenue's going down, margin going down. The double whammy, and you don't want to be in the middle of that. So a great example of a skeptic, right, Anne-Marie? Somebody who he's in charge of this stuff. And he just doesn't believe in it. So I don't know how knowledgeable he was in data, but it kind of doesn't matter. When you have a poor attitude on it, that's going to be problematic.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And a person, just keep in mind, just a little bit of a nuance here. A person is not a data skeptic if they believe in the value of data-driven analysis, but they think their organization's data is of such a low quality level, and their analyses that they have are so poorly built that they don't even use the tools because they know the data is inaccurate and even misleading. That's not a data skeptic. That's we don't have this level, but it's probably a data realist. They realize things are not good. So let me keep going. Data indifference. This is somebody who just they don't think negatively about data, but they just don't have much interest in it. They have no opinion on its value or non-value. The person may use data in their job function. However, they don't understand it, and they just follow whatever guidelines they've been given. So a good learning point here, for some staff, it makes sense for them to be data indifferent, especially if they don't use much data often in their job function. So if somebody is data indifferent and they're a data minimalist, that's fine, because they don't use it often, if at all. So there's no reason to really work on it if it's not really part of their job function. Data discernment. This is our third data literacy persona. Somebody who has discernment, grasps and comprehends data, and that data has value and is necessary for the organization. I challenge anybody at any significant company, $500 million or more. Could your company function without data? I've not seen one, and I've been consulting a long time. So It is something that's vital. It is the lifeblood of certainly any organization that I've ever seen. And in general, most staff that we see, at least many of them, fall into this persona or right around this persona. A person, so just a little learning point here, a person may not have a high level of data literacy, but possibly they do appreciate the value that data can provide and realize that it has a lot of potential. Okay, let's look at, oh, I just realized we didn't do data driven. Oh,
Oh my goodness.
I'm missing a slide, Anne Marie, but
David, this
that's
never
okay.
happened. We'll talk about it. What's a data-driven persona? Just tell us about it, please.
Anne Marie, I'm so glad you asked. Here, let me put on, so I look really smart when I answer this. Let me put on my cool reading glasses. Anyway, just kidding, I don't need them right now. Anyway, so somebody who's data-driven is somebody who truly believes that data can make the difference between success and failure. Somebody who says, hey, before I make any kind of decision, I want to see where the data is pointing to. And this is seminal because in almost every company, certainly the ones we deal with, they want to be data driven. They want to stop relying on tribal knowledge, stop relying on gut instinct and, slurp the finger, hold it up and feel which way the wind's blowing. That's not that effective. And certainly you see it. The companies who are data driven perform vastly better. In one of our earlier webinars, I spoke about data literacy return on investment. At least I thought I did. I know I spoke about data literacy ROI. Was that one of our earlier ones? Do you recall?
No, actually, you talked about it at a very high level and teased the audience with, we're coming back with a whole session on it. And that's next month. That's the next seminar.
So when you give a lot of these seminars, you forget where you gave them at. So not next month, but the following month, September, you're not doing nothing. Show up for that one. The kids are back in school. You're not going on vacation. Show up for that one. We'll talk about data literacy return on investment. So anyway, when companies are data driven, the numbers are staggering. They're vastly more successful. Their margins are higher. Their profit is higher. And having worked with a lot of companies who are not data driven, I can assure you the impact to the bottom line is significant. So I think I covered data driven well. Sorry, we were missing a slide on it. But so why did I just walk you through these personas? Because they help us understand and categorize our culture, the culture of our organization. And this is something important for some of you who are a little more, who have more background in this. It's very hard sometimes to measure culture because that is a qualitative measurement. When you hear qualitative and quantitative, think quantitative, quantity. You're counting something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Qualitative is think of quality. It allows us to gauge people's attitudes and beliefs. And you can do this in an automated fashion within your organization to gauge people's attitude. Yes.
Let me ask the question that was posed a minute ago.
Oh,
how do you assess an organization's data literacy? I was explaining in the typed answer that we do this all the time for our client partners. We have an assessment vehicle, and developing that in an automated fashion makes it possible not only to track the baseline, current state, starting point, but how each individual and the department, the organization as a whole improves. Is this where you're going with that?
Absolutely. And Anne-Marie, could you please cut and paste our data literacy page because there's even more information on that from EW Solutions. Just
yes, I can.
The chat. That way everyone can see it. But let me give you a little bit of what's on that page. Listen closely. You got to do it automated. You do not have the time. If you're at a global 2000 company, you have thousands of employees. You cannot sit down with each of them and say, hey, Bill, what do you think? You need to have an automated questionnaire. And you can score them automatically to see what is the culture points not only collectively within your organization, but individually, because that's how we raise the collective, right? It's by helping those people, the laggards, if you will, who are behind where they should be. You can do it all, whomever asked that question, you can do it all automatically. And what Anne Marie brought up about the baseline and then reassessing is critical. So not only do we do that baseline, but then based on where individuals score, they get different kinds of training, again, all automatically. And then at the end of it, you re-baseline them. You get a new measurement to see, hey, was the training effective? Because it allows you to look at it and say, hey, these modules are performing extremely well, but these others are not. Well, let's look at those again. There's something we can do better. So some organizations, people work with data at a leadership level, but are data skeptics, like my example earlier. And this is a classic sign when you see executives with a minimal understanding of minimal personas who are data driven. It's a classic sign of an organization that is poor literacy, and they are going to face challenges. One of the hardest things is to really grow our desire to be data driven. If an organization has fewer skeptics, they tend to have better data literacy. So super important to look at attitude, because there's that old saying, attitude determines altitude. And it's true. You can have the best analytics money can buy, but if people don't believe in them, they're not going to use them for decision making. And that is, by the way, one of the secrets of analytics. It's about changing behavioral patterns. It is about getting people to use them to make decisions. Let me keep going. Even though we're doing well on time, so I know Anne Marie probably has a couple more questions, but let me dive into the final analyses, if I may. Data literacy, roles, levels, and personas are necessary in order to have the proper KPIs to measure the success of your program. If you cannot automatically measure these, and for those of you who have a background like Anne Marie and myself in doctoral programs and how you do statistical analyses and how you figure out people's thoughts and beliefs on it, you're going to do some qualitative analysis. That's what you're going to be doing. And the trick to qualitative analysis is having surveys, having ways to check to where then you can evolve them into a quantitative measurement, a number that you could assign. So if our overall corporate data literacy level is a 2.5, that may be somewhere between basic and literate. That's not bad. But after we implement our program, we would want to see that 2.5 go up to like 2.8, 2.9, 3.2. Those would all be wonderful ways to improve your program. Because guess what, folks? There's no magic bullets to this. You can't cut corners. You can't do it on the cheap. You have to really have a program where the data literacy training you have, where it's detailed, where you have good reporting on it, where you have managers who can then work with their people. You do this the right way, you're going to achieve amazing results. This is what it's all about. Anne Marie, are there any questions, any more you want to hit me with?
Actually, David, there are. What I'd like to do is ask the question from an anonymous attendee about what type of benchmark do you want for a person who knows to ask many questions, but doesn't understand how to take that data and then interpret it for better results? Is that at a skill that everybody should have? Is that a skill that only advanced data literate people should have? Where would you see that type of skill falling?
Yeah, really great question. So to me, somebody at that level would be a data or business analyst. That should be their data use role. And to me, I need to get them up to literate, because they're making real corporate decisions for our organization. And if they don't know, and if they don't understand how to take that into that data and make good decisions, then that's not good for our organization. And that's going to hit our bottom line significantly. And I can tell you, having worked with many financial institutions as well. Sometimes you can have 8 to 10,000 analysts making real live corporate decisions that impact your bottom line. Do we give Mary a loan? Yes. Do we give Jimmy a loan? No. Well, guess what? Maybe we didn't really make that decision all that well. It's a great question. So I would say literate for a business or data analyst, absolutely.
We have one last question, time for
Okay.
one last question. And I have a question for you. Who do you think is doing data literacy well? Which organizations or companies have done their data literacy program well?
Really great question. I can't name any of our client partners yet because we don't have that approval, but I will
Right.
tell you, yeah, so there, when you look at it, data literacy as a concept is evolving at this point in time. So as far as formal, so I'm taking your question, whoever asked that one, I'm taking it as, hey, you're really asking me, I was trying to look to see who asked it.
It says
You're
anonymous attendee.
really, another anonymous.
Yes.
Anyway, just know we're watching you. Anyway, sorry, just trying to be a little bit funny. So anyway, with with companies who are doing it well, I don't really see great enterprise data literacy programs because it's so new. Remember, when this concept started becoming ubiquitous in our industry, it really started up in 2019 and then into 2020. So obviously there's been a lot of things happening across the world during that time. So most companies that I know are in that journey, are getting more sophisticated. And really, here's the hook with it. A lot of CDOs have this on their top 5 KPIs themselves, is to raise their data literacy because companies want to be data driven. And I could certainly, when I think back, I think of companies like Mayo Clinic, very data driven in much of what they do. British Petroleum, BP, very data driven. So there's a couple examples for you.
Thank you. And we have a couple more questions, but we're running out of time. And I want to drive these questions to the Data Management U LinkedIn page. If you use LinkedIn, please follow the Data Management U page, and we will post these questions on LinkedIn, and we will start a discussion on answering them. I would hope that everybody who's on this session, both live and watching the webinar later, goes to LinkedIn and follows DMU, the Data Management U page, and engages in the discussion about things like a maturity model for data literacy, about the different levels and personas, and how do you get the CIO of a big enterprise to want to do data literacy? That's a question that I think would be the basis for a long and involved and very entertaining and informative discussion on LinkedIn. David, do you want to take 2 seconds to weigh in on that before we close?
Absolutely. For the CIO, this is not the regular person at your organization. This is a critical one. A bunch of TLC, tender loving care. You don't have to look up the acronym. You're going to need to meet with him or her and really help guide them on the importance of it, how data literacy works, how you can utilize it within your organization, and why it's critical. So what I love doing is using real world situations when I speak to somebody at that level of, hey, here's a great example of where we ordered 1,000 widgets when really we had most of those widgets on the line. We only needed about 100. And we misordered it because people didn't understand the numbers they were looking at. These kind of situations, sadly, many companies, especially financial services, have had fines from regulatory bodies. If you're getting a lot of regulatory fines for your data, your literacy level is low, period. And it needs to be evolved. So those are a couple of very quick things, those real life pain points that they can relate to. That's what's critical. And I'm always looking for those. Anne-Marie, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to let you take us home.
Thank you, David. I'm thrilled that we're back here. I want to make sure that everybody understands that next month we are taking a break. August, no webinar from DMU. Enjoy whatever holidays you have. We will be back in September with data literacy return on investment. If you're interested in learning how to get your organization examining and improving its data literacy, this is the webinar to attend so that you can explain how data literacy can return a significant investment to your organization. Again, we hope you will subscribe to datamanagementu.com and be informed of all of our webinars, especially the future ones, and see all our articles, read each one, learn more about data literacy and about all the other areas of enterprise data management. And we thank you for your time. We wish you a wonderful rest of your day and hope to see you again here in September.